Hey Bernard, you're very welcome along. So we're going to chat rugby with Bernard Jackman now. He has just watched Stade Français 37, Connacht 31. I asked you on the radio when we were just talking immediately a full time, sum that up, and you said chaos. So that's a pretty good description. Often very enjoyable chaos when Connacht are involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there was a period there around the 70th minute or maybe the 74th minute, where the ball was in play for 3 or 4 minutes. There was space everywhere. It was 14v14, long passages. Connacht were throwing the ball around. Connacht or Stade were trying to play with a little bit more shape, but eventually they lost the plot as well, and it just became a free for all and highly entertaining. But not if you're a Connacht fan, to see your team lose again, in the last quarter. And even though they got the bonus point, they got losing bonus points, they got 2 points. They'd be disappointed. That was a big opportunity to win away from home in Paris.
For people who didn't see the game, Alex Wootton scored an early try for Connacht. Caelan Blade followed up very shortly thereafter, and then Caelan Blade scored again just before half time, and the Connacht maul was in full effect for that third Connacht try. It's much improved this year. Second half, Farrell gets a try. Jared Butler gets a try on 61 minutes for Connacht to go 31 points to 20 up against 14 men. So at that point, you hit pause and you say this has been an exceptional performance. Parallels with Leicester the week before. What seems to go wrong in those closing 20 for you?
Look, I genuinely believe it's not having a bench that has that depth, and I think they have improved a lot. So, for example, they've now got two very good hookers, Hefford and Delahunt. They've got two very good nines in Marmion and Blade. Obviously Marmion wasn't available today, so then you're down to an academy player. They've got a lot of centres. They've got some depth now in the back three, but it's the front row for me. It's absolutely crucial, and they lost Buckley to a long-term injury at the start of the season. But today they were just ravaged by injury, some COVID in the front row, and they had to go with two young academy props on the bench. And I believe they've got a big future. Both Sam Elo, we saw him play for the Irish under-20s in the summer in Cardiff. He has potential. He's moved down from Leinster. Charlie Ward is a Tulla man, like myself. Again, a really good prospect, but it's a big ask for them to go and come on and have the same kind of effect that the Stade Français replacement front rows could have, were obviously experienced campaigners. And the fact that they left the starting props on for so long showed that Andy Friend knew that it was a huge ask. So I just feel that's the problem for them. It's just lack of depth. What they do, Joe, is really intelligent. It's effective play, and they make up for their lack of power or experience by being very well coached. But when you come to the business end of the season, I think they're always going to struggle against teams who have better depth, and Leicester have shown that over the last two legs as well. So that's the challenge. Unless they get a real luck with injuries and availability, which you very rarely have for a whole season, I think they will come undone at the crucial stage.
I don't know where our FU finances are. I suspect not in perfect shape given everything that's gone on the last couple of years. But in Connacht we have such an interesting case study. They are exceeding expectations. Every opposition coach who comes up against them, Borthwick last week for instance, talks about how well coached they are. You've made that point as well. And so what a frustration. What's letting them down at the final hurdle here is just a little bit of strength and depth. So you would almost wonder if the RFU would look at Connacht and say, well, if there was ever a time to really back them and see what they could do here, given that everything else is in place, we're not throwing good money after bad here. We can almost have a certain faith that if we give a bit of extra money, it's going to be used well and could make a big difference. You would love to see that, because it just feels very frustrating that they're doing everything very well and playing this amazing brand of rugby, and yet they're almost destined to fall at the final hurdle for just that little bit at the end, that little bit of depth at the end.
Yeah, and you know what? It's actually going to become harder for them because, guys like Delan, guys like Sammy Ireland who've come and put in massive shifts for Connacht, you can't not take into account that when they look at their challenges on a weekly basis, they probably know it's going to be hard for them if they stay there to win silverware, because players are realists as well. They see what other teams can do in the transfer market in terms of retaining. So I think it's hard. I also understand completely from an RFU point of view. I mean, I think all the provinces are getting cut this year. Rumours of Munster have to knock $1 million off their wage bill. So it'd be pretty hard to justify our stomach for the other three provinces if Connacht were getting a boost at a time when they were getting a drop. But I do think if it was treated on an individual basis and you were speculating to accumulate, I think you could trust Connacht with their budget, a little bit more. They don't overspend. They make mistakes like everyone else. But even when they go for non-Irish, Mac Hansen is Irish qualified, so we went and found an Irish qualified player who hadn't got a massive CV, and now he's in the Irish squad. So I think time and time again they managed to do very, very well with what they have. They're blooding young Irish players on a regular basis, so we see a lot of Leinster Academy rejects or guys who didn't make the Leinster Academy at the end of the Sub Academy go down there, and Prendergast is another one of those who's now in the Irish squad. So they're doing a service to Irish rugby. They're going to be moving to a new stadium hopefully the next 3 or 4 years. The URC now makes it more difficult for them to qualify for the Champions Cup because they're competing with the other Irish provinces. So, I would certainly be in favour if there was any bit of extra finance to give it to them and see what they could do with it.
And parking private investment for a moment, because we've seen Munster go off and raise private monies for big name signings. What is the disparity in budget these days? Ballpark figure. I know you're very connected between Connacht and the other provinces.
Yeah, so I think that it's very hard because the RFU are very smart the way they manage their financial statements. So it's very hard to see what goes where. But I would, if for example Leinster were at 10 million, and I would say Munster probably 9, Ulster 8.5. And these are guesses now, but I would say, and Connacht, I'm not sure where Connacht are. I'd be shocked if they're over 5. I heard they're around 4. So they are. They're well down. And look at the other provinces would argue they don't do enough themselves to boost that through season tickets, sponsorship, etc. So it's a very tricky area to get into because we're not given the figures. But I know that they wouldn't be able to go and sign a Vermeulen or a Jason Jenkins probably like the other provinces can, and they're constantly trying to find value in the market, which is great, and it keeps you honest, and you have to do a good job. But every so often, that's more of a gamble than signing an Issa Nasiwa, a Brad Thorne, a Rocky Elsom. You kind of know they're going to come in and help your team straight away. When you're signing a Lefa Fatita, Diwal Senegal coached him in Grenoble. He was playing in Pro D2. So that's the level you're recruiting at, and that does make it hard. Now, having said that, they're not cribbing and crying. They're getting on with it, trying to be the best they can be, and they're doing a hell of a good job. So I don't want this to become a negative discussion, but I'm kind of saying, look at, they certainly do look after their money, and if they could find a bit of investment, and maybe it's private investment, maybe that's the solution, because they certainly have the people of Connacht very, very proud of what they're doing at the moment, I believe.
Yeah. And I suppose maybe to finish on a positive then, what they did for the first 61 minutes to get to 31 points in Paris, you used the phrase at one point with Conor on commentary, Conor Morrison commentary, that there was such variety to what they're doing. I mean, they're never predictable at any point. And Steve Borthwick made that point last week as well. So you might expand on that for us. Yeah,
it's just like they know they're not the biggest team in the world. They've had to work incredibly hard to try and shore up their lack of size and power, to turn an attacking maul into a weapon at time to time, to not be obliterated at scrum time. So they're very well drilled. They're very technically and tactically astute. But then also that goes on to other sides of the game, which isn't about the set piece. Just man for man, they're not as big and powerful as we saw Lemape, the All Black centre. He's just a force of nature. So Connacht can't run over people like some of the other teams. So they need to find holes, need to pull defences apart, and then throw the perfect pass. Because I remember speaking to Mike Prendergast, and he coached me in Grenoble, and then obviously he went to Oyna, and then he went to Stade Français, and when he coached in Stade Français, he was coaching far better athletes than he ever did before. Racing 92, he has far better athletes. So if you run a strike play and the pass is a metre too deep to someone like Vakatawa, he can still make it good. He can still make a line break because he's just an absolute freak. But with Connacht, I always feel, and certainly talking to other coaches, they kind of need to do everything right on the margin of being flat, timing, to make up for the fact that they're not full of massively powerful, super quick guys. And that's what I mean. And then they hit teams in different areas in a succession. If there's 5 phases, they will pretty much probe at 4 different doors first before eventually they can open one. So from a defensive point of view, people get stressed in defense when the attacker are asking different questions of you. So that's what's been really impressive. And it's also, I mean, Peter Wilkins was the defense coach. They had a massive turnover of staff. Jimmy Duffy, Nigel Carlin, been there a long time, left in the summer. And I think Andy Friend has done a great job of reorganising his staff with obviously a couple of local lads, Irish coaches in Mossy Lawler and Colin Tucker who were in the academy, bringing them up. Peter Wilkins becoming de facto head coach, and what they're doing on the field is very pleasing on the eye. But I also think it's effective. I know people, like a lot of people get on to me and say, "Oh, you're talking about Munster, you're not being as critical of Munster as you are of Connacht." And their argument is, they lost to Leicester twice, and their argument will be they lost to Stade today. But I don't. The 2 reasons I probably aren't as critical of Connacht is I genuinely enjoy watching them play, and secondly, I understand that they don't have the resources that others do. Now, it's about winning, and Andy Friend would be good if they didn't win, but there's true to the knockout stages, and I do believe that if they were a little bit luckier in terms of availability, they definitely would have beaten Stade today. If they had a couple of props available, that scrum wouldn't have been as a big of an issue, and they had the all-round game to beat Stade in Paris.
Yes, either way, they have made the knockout stages for the first time in their history. Now we are talking before all the games have been completed, around 3:30 on a Sunday afternoon. But it does look like their reward for making the knockout stages is a 2-legged fixture against Leinster.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. And then
tough deal.
Leinster wouldn't be fourth if they hadn't have lost that game against Montpellier in the boardroom. So it's highly unlucky. Having said that, they know Leinster well. They'll fancy themselves in the sports ground. It'll be a huge fixture for them in terms of profile, hype. I think it'd be brilliant. I mean, with things opening up, I mean, I'd love to see Leinster play that game at Aviva and have a massive crowd, a massive Irish derby in Europe, which we haven't had a huge amount, historically. And obviously this new format changes that. But I think, look, it's a very difficult fixture, but there'll be no pressure on them. And the way Leinster play as well, I mean, over the course of 2 games, if that's what unfolds, I mean, we should get some brilliant attacking rugby.
Yeah, that's a great shout on the Aviva, 100%. And there's plenty of Western folk up in Dublin who'd go along to that match as well. So it'd be an amazing atmosphere. And I guess would it be the biggest, probably since 2009, Croke Park? Ulster and Munster had a big old tussle in the knockout stages a while back, but over 2 legs, and it's been so long since we've had a fixture like that. I think bringing
there was a big quarter-final Leinster-Ulster about 4 years ago where Stockdale dropped the ball. That was a big crowd. But I just think
be right up there.
If we get right up there, get them in and let's see, let them go.
Yeah, certainly the biggest occasion for Connacht rugby, and they've a team to be proud of in that kind of a fixture. So, well, that'd be great in one respect, but tough deal for Connacht. As for Leinster yesterday at the Rec, once again it was all too easy. Just to take a quick glance at the rest of the rugby this weekend. 64 points to 7, which means they have racked up 153 points and 23 tries in their last 2 games. Just shy of a point a minute over 2 games. Jimmy O'Brien got 4 tries. Jimmy O'Brien, 25 years of age. I feel like a fella who's made the impact over the last 2 games that he has made should be like 21, 22. I know he had some injury worries, but he's really caught the eye here. Is he playing way above himself, or do you know much about O'Brien?
Yeah, I know about him. He went to Newbridge College as well, so I've been keeping an eye on him for a while. Always felt very talented in Leinster. They always had high hopes for him, and I just think the last couple of weeks has been his chance to kind of show what he can do. Obviously, he was on the front foot, but I still think he's a player that could kick on, and have a massive career. The problem for a young lad like him is even though Leinster are very good at giving guys game time, and we all know historically they could play more than 55 players every year over the course of the season. That game time is often disjointed. You'd be in for a while when internationals were away, and also he's had some injuries, so he probably hasn't had a chance just to go, starting team back to back on a big occasion when the eyes of Irish from the Irish rugby public have been on him. And he's a very exciting player. He's very exciting. But look, Leinster themselves are stacked in terms of backs. But I'm delighted for someone like him who's slaving away probably under the radar a little bit, and this Champions Cup has given him a chance to really show what he can do, and hopefully the confidence he's got from those performances will make him really believe in himself and bring him to another level.
Only so much you can take from these two games from a Leinster point of view. Bigger challenges await. I guess with the Six Nations coming into view, it was Johnny Sexton's first start since the All Blacks game, so when you get to that age, I guess there's a degree where you want to see, well, how's he looking? Geez, he looked good. I mean, come on.
I just he's in a great place, and I would say better than he has been for the last 2 or 3 years. And even going back to November, how good he was. And I just think, do you remember about a year ago there was all this negativity and criticism about him, about the fact that he wanted to play on, and people saying madness and we need to develop another 10, etc. He just signed a 1-year contract to bring him to the end of the season, and he said, look, I'll play it by ear, I'll see how I'm feeling. And I think now everybody understands how important he is and how good he is, and let's just enjoy him. But I think Johnny Sexton's playing, and he doesn't get injured over the course of Six Nations, it improves Ireland's chance of winning it. And obviously, he'll be a key man for Leinster if they're to win this competition. But he's a different level to every other 10 in Ireland. And to be honest, most in England. I mean, Marcus Smith is a different type of player. He's a joy to watch as well. Dan Biggar is a talented player, Finn Russell. But I think Sexton, the influence he has on the overall team, rather than just actually when he touches the ball, is absolutely massive, and it's his USP, and it's his point of difference. But it's so transparent and it's so effective that he's an absolute key man.
This is his 16th season. They were saying commentary yesterday, made his debut in 06, and here he is. It's just hard to get your head around. Like at this stage, and I was one of those that laughed, like 2019 World Cup, maybe Johnny will be around for the next one. I mean, you're like, stop, be serious. And now, I mean, the worry with someone of a certain age is they could just go off a cliff suddenly, and we've seen that in different sports. That can happen. But that is kind of the only worry at the moment, because he's so far ahead of the rest, the way he's playing, and he really does look as good as he's looked at any stage in the last, well, I guess, 2018 when he won Player of the Year, that was a phenomenal year for him. But at any stage in the subsequent 4, what he's doing now looks very comparable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was interesting. I was talking to a few friends of mine who'd watch rugby, and they were basically going like, what was he doing coming on against Montpellier the last 20 minutes? And when the game was won and playing flat to the line and getting hit late. And I said, if you take that out, like if you try to tell Johnny, just go out there, play deep, get yourself into the game, like that's not him. His whole persona is he's going to play on the edge and do it at 100% at all time. And that's the way he prepares. He's really enjoying his rugby. He's in 2 really good environments. In fairness to him, he's been a big. He's never doubted Faz and Mike Catt, and I was delighted for him because I did doubt them. I was delighted for him that they showed in November.
You doubt them. You were front of the queue with the placard saying out.
I admit it. I was doubtful, and I was wrong. But I was actually very happy to eat my words and see that come to fruition in November. And I'm looking forward to seeing it evolve more. But Johnny was on that train. He was driving that as well, and it must be exciting for him to go through another transition. I don't know, like you said, he's playing 16 years, so he's seen a lot of different coaches, he's seen a lot of different game plans, a lot of different people come in and out of Irish squad, and again, it's that regeneration that he's part of now, which hopefully will lead us to some success short term, and obviously hopefully lead us to a decent World Cup.
Yeah, I don't know where he is in the pecking order of greatest of Irish players all time, but when longevity starts to come into the conversation and be respected, then what he's doing is fairly phenomenal. A quick word on Ulster: 34 points to 31 against Claremont. If people didn't see this, Ulster were 34 points to 12 up, and then Claremont woke themselves up and started to look interested and scored some tries, and so it finished 34-31. Ulster, of course, were already through. It again, health warning, we're not fully through the weekend, but it does look like Ulster's reward will be home and away against Toulouse, which is not much of a reward, the defending champions. And again, Toulouse are having their own war with the EPCR because their game was cancelled this weekend, and they have threatened legal action and said the whole thing is unjust. And interestingly, the French league have backed them. So will they get anywhere? Will they bother at this stage, given that they might just say, oh, we'll just take the draw and play Ulster? I don't know. And like, a legal process is not going to be done and dusted in time for the last 16. But that's all in the ether. From Ulster's point of view, it's not much of a reward for sailing through the knockouts or the pool stages in really fine fashion. I know Toulouse lost a game as well, so they're sort of sweating a bit, Bernard. There's nothing to suggest Toulouse will be any less a prospect than they were last year, is there?
No, I think if they get into it, which looks like they are, they'll have a real chip on their shoulder. They're the champions. They feel they've been totally disrespectful, respected. It's a nightmare draw for Ulster.
Yeah.
But if Dupont has to pay now, Dupont has COVID at the moment, and he'll be back by then. But he is absolutely key. I saw a stat that Toulouse win, I think, just under 90% of games when he plays, and 45% when he doesn't play. Now you have to take into account that if he doesn't play, it probably means they've rested 5 or 6 others as well, and they've turned the team as such. But he is just the best player in the world, but they've got a lot of other talent. So that would be a great fixture for Ulster to really test themselves. But yeah, I think that's the worst possible draw you can get, except Leinster. But I hope Toulouse get into this last 16. I think the competition would be damaged if they weren't in it.
If Toulouse don't, there's an asterisk. Even if Leinster,
Exactly.
hammer everyone on the way to winning a glorious title, then it'll be that was the year the defending champions got knocked out.
And they did lose. They lost on the pitch against Wasps. So I don't have an issue with them not having a home, not being in the top 4. I mean, that was their own doing.
Yeah.
But they would. I want them to be in the competition because I think the integrity competition will decrease if they're not. But Ulster looking like they found some good young players. Their front 5 have stood up the last couple of weeks. Now Claremont are in transition. They're in that tricky spot where they have a new coach and he doesn't like what he sees and he's making changes. And Jono's gone back there. He obviously knew a lot of the individuals from before when he was there, and he's decided to make some change in terms of some of the more experienced players. So they're just in that little spot, and they were terrible for 20 minutes. But then when they woke up, they have individuals who can do great things. So even though it looks on paper the home and away win against Claremont is absolutely massive, I think we just need to understand that form at the moment is a little bit off. But Ulster, I thought some of their attack against Northampton last week was exceptional. Now we're seeing the likes of Stuart Moore and James Hume, Balacloon, etc. get recognised. So and obviously I think Vermeulen's a very, very smart signing as well.
Yeah. Huge amount of optimism around those 3 provinces. As we're recording, Munster currently playing. Our rugby coverage is with thanks to Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team of us, everyone in. Bernard Jackman here with us. One last question for you. 6 Nations. France have Ireland and England coming to Paris. The even number year is obviously always very difficult for Ireland, despite the optimism. There's a whole lot of things pointing towards France winning this year's competition. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm fancying France. I think the All Blacks win has given them even more confidence. They've built a huge amount of depth going away to Australia last summer with all non-first choice players. The top 14 is now full of good young quality French players. They've got good coaching staff, and I think it's a very competitive 6 Nations. I think we'll be thereabouts, but I think home advantage for them against Ireland and England might just be enough to. Yeah. I don't think they'll win a Grand Slam, but I think they'll win the trophy.
And like for Ireland, with the view to the World Cup, you'd say a good year would be winning one of the Twickenham or Stade de France matches and maybe nicking one. I mean, if you could win an away test in New Zealand and lose the series and not win the 6 Nations, you'd still kind of say, well, if the brand of rugby looks good, that's a very acceptable year. We have to be fair as well to the coaching ticket, I presume.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's evolving again, our style of play on the basis that, Wales will come with a plan to try and stop it. We're going to have to adjust our game plan. We're going to have to find different layers to it. So that, for me, that's the key, is to have a game plan that the players really believe in, that's evolving, that makes it less predictable, and also then finding one or two more players. So is that if Gibson Park is going to be the number one for Ireland, well, he becomes a very accomplished and comfortable international nine. I know he looked great in November, but just that he gets to play Six Nations, he gets to be pressurised in different ways. Is Ballycloone going to be a bolter? Can we find two or three more players? Obviously, we all see Dan Sheehan now coming through in Leinster, so I think we've got three very good hookers. But you're just looking for another couple of players to put their hand up and potentially sneak into being a starter for Ireland in a critical games in 2 years' time.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't want. We don't want a stagnant team with not much competition. There needs to be some bolters coming through. So yeah, I think there's a lot of Irish players playing well. And I think the squad, the farthest picked, is exciting. So, there's going to be lots to talk about over the next 7 or 8 weeks.
No, it's a fun time of year, springtime, and restrictions lifted, and hopefully a good time ahead. Geez, you'd have had some fun on your hands at Leinster if Kelleher and Sheehan were there.
No, it's going to be. I mean, look. Leo and Stewart are very good at managing people's expectations and time, but like at some stage, Sheehan is going to, if he can't get ahead of Kelleher, he's going to go, right, what do I need to do? It's just, but again, I mean, I think Leinster are very lucky that a lot of their players are homegrown. It's a brilliant team to play for. They're well coached. You can actually play for Ireland and not be a starter, which in fairness, that's not Conor Murray and Craig Casey, proved that you can do that in Munster as well. But at the moment, they haven't lost many. They lost Jordy Murphy to Ulster, who are kind of in the Irish squad. And Sheehan and Kelleher, the problem is they're both very young. And they both could be around knocking heads for the next 6 or 7 years. But I think if you're winning trophies, if they're winning European Cups again, and they're both getting international recognition, you have a better chance. But yeah, it's a nice problem to have, but it wouldn't be easy now looking at them on a Monday morning.
Great to have you in the coverage today. Appreciate it, Bernard Jackman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe.